Boruto is currently on a path to certain destruction. His opponent, known as Jura, is one of, if not the strongest character we've ever seen in the Naruto-Boruto universe, so much so that Boruto's most powerful jutsu, dubbed Rasengan Uzuhiko, was rendered useless. This leaves Boruto in a very tough position without many options, but what if I told you there was another way? What if I told you that Jura has a major weakness and its name is Kirin? You see, this goes back to something very insightful Itachi said back in Naruto, which is that every jutsu has a weakness. This of course doesn't just apply to jutsus, but also certain entities as well, depending on their body composition. One example of this being the Tail Beast vulnerability to Genjutsu or Suigetsu being especially susceptible to lightning-based techniques. This is all possible due to a core mechanic of the universe being taken advantage of, and that remains true in Boruto. You see, the new Shinju entities are indeed immensely powerful, and that's largely because they were created using the body and power of the Ten Tails. Though due to that same connection, they also gained a great weakness, and in this case, that weakness is nature itself. To understand why this is the case, we need to go back to the events of Naruto, specifically the events of the Fourth Great War. This is around the time the Ten Tails was brought back using the chakra of the 9 Biju along with the Gedo statue, which is of course the husk of the Ten Tails itself. This part is very important because this is when we learned that the Ten Tails is just a mass of natural energy. In fact, Kurama states that it's the same as that which circulates the world, that which you feel in the soil, the water, and air. We also got a visual representation of this immense power after Naruto tried to gauge it by entering Sage Mode. All we could see was just how immeasurable this power truly is. Now what this means is that similar to how the Biju themselves are just masses of enormous power that's capable of taking a physical form, the same applies to the Ten Tails as well, which means at its core the Ten Tails is just a mass of natural energy in physical form. Now the reason why this is important is because Naruto is able to damage Obito or Jubito due to him being the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails. He explained that toad attacks are senjutsu, which means that they use nature energy. So since the Ten Tails is nature energy itself, maybe you can counter nature energy with nature energy. This was especially unique to the Ten Tails Jinchuriki that was less affected by non-senjutsu based techniques. Now just to clarify one big misconception, the Ten Tails Jinchuriki isn't immune to non-senjutsu based abilities. It just has high resistance to them. We know this to be the case since Sasuke was able to damage Jubito using Amaterasu that was amplified by Naruto's Rasen Shuriken while he was in KCM1. It showed steam emitting from Jubito's stomach after the attack, which is what's used to highlight the healing factor of a Jinchuriki. Though I guess one could say that it more so represents the healing factor of a tailed beast since the same thing happened when Hidari healed from his injuries. In either case, it's proven that normal attacks can in fact damage a Ten Tails Jinchuriki, and by extension, the Ten Tails. It just has to be strong enough. And the reason why this is very important to clarify is that I've gotten a few comments on past videos wondering if Ikimoto simply forgot about this mechanical weakness the Ten Tails possesses. And while that's certainly possible, it is possible that Ikimoto simply forgot about it, which would be funny, but I haven't seen any indication of that so far. The character simply not mentioning this doesn't necessarily mean that the writer forgot about it. They could be operating under that premise already without needing to explain that again to the audience. One indication of this is the fact that Mitsuki was sent on this mission, and it wasn't random. Koji requested that Shikamaru sent these individuals, and there's likely a reason for that. We know Araya needed to be there since he has the Ryu countering Deus Ex Machina sword. Yodo had to be there to give Sarada that speech after sensing that she's hiding her true power, and Sarada had to be there to unlock that true power to defeat Ryu. And of course, Konohamaru had to be there to collect more L's. But what about Mitsuki? Well, that's likely because he was sent there to use his power that's more effective against the Shinju, despite Mitsuki himself not being that impressive. That's why he was able to cause Ryu to cough up blood with a single strike of his snakes. His power is simply more effective against a being whose body is made up of material from the Ten Tails. It's like one of those mobile games where they tell you what type of magic user will be more effective against a certain enemy, and if you follow that guide, your attacks will do more damage than the other magic users. Though I'm not sure why Mitsuki didn't use Snake Lightning in that fight, since not only would he have the Sage counter but also Lightning since It's established in Boruto's anime that Shinki's sand is weak to lightning, so that was very strange. Now, the Shinchu beings aren't necessarily just fragments of the Ten Tails, since they also possess Code's chakra and the chakra of the people that they copied. So one could argue that this would remove their weakness to natural energy, which is 100% possible by the way, but that doesn't have to be the case. I mean, the Ten Tails Jinchuriki in Naruto was literally the merger of the Ten Tails and the human's chakra, that being Obito's or maybe Madara's. It also had the chakra of the other Biju as well, which technically came from the Ten Tails, but you get my point. So if Obito's chakra being mixed in with the Ten Tails didn't remove that weakness, I see no reason why a Shinju would be different. This means that someone who has the ability to manipulate nature energy or use sage attacks would be very valuable in this mission. Now notice that I did say manipulate nature energy or use sage attacks, and that's because they're not necessarily the same thing, in the sense that while you need the ability to manipulate nature energy to perform sage attacks, you don't need to be a sage to manipulate nature energy. A good example of this would be Jugo's natural affinity to absorb and use natural energy, to the point that he could use sage transformation, which is different from sage mode. In fact, as explained by the great Toad Sage, or one of them, it's all about the balance between mental, physical, and nature energy. If you don't manipulate those three together carefully, you can't produce Sage Jutsu Chakra. And just to clarify one thing, mental and physical energy is what's used to amplify chakra itself, so in essence Naruto is just adding natural energy to the mix, which is then used to create a new type of chakra. So think Kirin Mode and it should make sense. Now this then leads us back to Mr. Star of Hope, who hasn't yet shown the ability to use Sage Mode or manipulate nature energy. So despite what I said before, what relevance does this have to Boruto? Well, that's where Kirin comes into the picture. You see, this ability is pretty much Sasuke taming natural lightning and then redirecting it to his desired location, which then causes massive amounts of damage. The key thing to note from this is that Kirin is made from natural lightning, which is pretty much nature energy. Again, nature energy or natural energy is that which makes up the soil, the water, and air, which means that Kirin, which is made from the energy in the sky, would be very effective against the Ten Tails Jinchuriki or the Shinju. Also, just to clarify if I wasn't clear before, the weakness of the Ten Tails Jinchuriki was nature energy, not senjutsu. So senjutsu worked against the Ten Tails Jinchuriki because it also consists of nature energy. And the word consist is really important here because I'm sure some will argue that Kirin isn't strong enough to damage Jura when 6 bats Naruto tanked it, which is true. The good thing about Kirin is that it isn't just nature energy, it's also amped by the user's chakra. You see, the biggest issue with this ability back in Naruto was the contradiction within its description. First, we have Black Zetsu implying that the ability scales to the speed of lightning, which is of course 1/1000 the speed of a second. This of course is also significantly slower than the speed of light, yet the databook and the fanbook says that Kirin itself is the speed of light. So clearly something is wrong here. Now one could argue that Zetsu could have been wrong by gauging the ability based on the fact that it's lightning and just using that to say that it's also the speed of lightning. The reason why I say this is because even though Kirin itself is natural lightning, Sasuke is the one controlling the ability using his chakra in the form of lightning release. That's why he has the Chidori on his hand directing the ability, and also why it shows Sasuke shooting chakra towards the sky. So Sasuke is controlling and directing it using his chakra, which would also influence its speed and also the strength of the ability as well. The opposite of this is of course implying that Gaara's sand moves at the speed at which sand blows in the desert, even when he's remotely controlling it with his chakra. This clearly wouldn't make sense since the speed at which Gaara can manipulate his sand changes along with the character, thus being able to tag faster opponents. The same would apply to Kirin as well, thus going from a dying Itachi being able to react to it by using his Susanoo to then being able to hit 6 bats Sage Mode Naruto and a powered up Urashiki Otsutsuki. So clearly the speed of the jutsu increased alongside Sasuke, which would imply that it doesn't scale to the base speed of natural lightning. So it is likely that Zetsu was simply wrong or Kishimoto changed his mind, which would also make Zetsu wrong. So Kirin would of course scale to Boruto's power level, which he can then further amp using the planetary chakra he used to power Uzuhiko, thus becoming more effective. Again, the Ten Tails being weak to nature energy means that the effectiveness of nature-based attacks are multiplied, unquantifiably so. which of course simply means that we can't use its effectiveness against characters like Naruto, Itachi, or Mr. Oroshiki to gauge how much damage it would do to our Shinju. Also, I know that some would argue that Boruto would need to use fire style jutsu to heat up the sky to cause a thunderstorm, but this isn't really true. I mean, if you go back to when Naruto first met Sasuke at the start of Shippuden, Sasuke tried to use Kirin during the day with a clear sky. So this implies that Sasuke can also induce a thunderstorm using his lightning based chakra instead of using a fireball jutsu. Though of course that's just a theory. Also, Black Lightning is stated in the databook to be the highest form of lightning release, at least according to Naruto Versity, which is normally correct since the information they use is from the databooks, but take it with a grain of salt if you want. I would say that it somewhat lines up with how it's portrayed in the manga, with Sasuke using it when mentally amped versus Naruto in part 1, later on when he infused Chidori with 6 paths chakra, and Kakashi doing it as well when he received Obito's 6 paths chakra. So, Black Lightning seems to be the most powerful form of lightning release, which can either be achieved with a power boost or through skill as seen with Dari. So just imagine Boruto's nature energy based Kirin being boosted by his and the planet's chakra, allow it being the most powerful form of lightning. That would be amazing, and might significantly weaken or stun Jura. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong and the Shinjus aren't weak to nature energy and Mitsuki was just there for emotional support. I guess we'll see. With that said, that's it for the video. If you guys liked it, drop a like. If you're new, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.